After years of chasing this exact moment, the message she sent stopped her fans cold, because this isn't just about a number next to her name on a draw sheet. This is about a 21-year-old from the Philippines rewriting what's possible at the most prestigious tournament in tennis. And what's waiting for her in round 2 might be the most talked about match of the entire championships. Stay with us, because by the end of this story, you'll understand why so many people are calling this the biggest moment in Philippine tennis history.
The special ones for you, isn't it?
Yes, Wimbledon has always been kind of the tournament for me growing up. And, it gets kind of sentimental when I hear that, I've been seeded. Of course, I try not to dwell on it a lot just because the tournament hasn't started yet. But I think when I first heard the news, it's touching because I get to look back at how far I've come, and to be a seed at Wimbledon. It's a big deal, and it's something I'm really proud of.
It's been remarkable for you, the grass court season, hasn't it? Obviously the title in Birmingham, then back-to-back wins with Rebecca and Svitolina,
Yes.
Obviously in Berlin. I feel like you love playing on grass. Your game seems to suit grass, but do you feel in good grass form now as well?
Yes, I think I've definitely put in the hours. I've had the matches, and I've had that time on court, so I couldn't have come into Wimbledon in better shape. I think I've done everything to prepare the best way I could. Yeah.
You and Sean Fonseca are like the two most popular tennis players in the world. How does it feel playing in front of that kind of atmosphere so regularly?
It's amazing to be able to experience this. I also know that it could be fleeting. I don't know how long it could last, so I'm trying to take every moment in and enjoy it to the.
To understand why this moment matters so much, you have to go back 12 months, to a Wimbledon that didn't go the way Alex Eala dreamed it would. It was her main draw debut at the All England Club, the tournament she has always called her favorite. The grass courts of Wimbledon hold a kind of magic for players who grew up watching them on television, and for Eala, stepping onto that court for the first time as a professional was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, she ran into Barbora Krejcikova, a former champion who knew exactly how to break down a young challenger point by point. The match went 3 sets, 3-6, 6-2, 6-1, and by the end, Eala was packing her bags earlier than she'd hoped. It wasn't a humiliation. In fact, Krejcikova herself had nothing but praise for the young Filipina afterward, recognizing the fight in her game even in defeat. But a first-round exit is still a first-round exit, and for an athlete who carries the hopes of an entire nation on her shoulders every time she steps on court, that kind of loss doesn't just disappear, it lingers. Here's the thing people often forget about Alex Eala. Her fame arrived before her results fully caught up to it.
I think I did well in keeping my game consistent. There were a lot of different external factors today, a lot of wind, and of course, Zhang Shuai is a big hitter, so I'm really happy with the match. Yeah.
Talk to me about your preparation for the grass court season. I know that Roland Garros didn't go the way you wanted to, but how did you use that time to get ready for the grass court season?
I think just training like normal. Honestly, I did not have a lot of time to train on grass before I started in Birmingham. I probably had like a day or two. But yeah, I think I felt right at home, and I really enjoyed last week. So I'm trying to keep that momentum going.
She became, by some measures, one of the most followed and most talked about players in tennis almost overnight, propelled by a fan base in the Philippines and across the Filipino diaspora that doesn't just watch her matches, they live and breathe them. That kind of attention is a gift. It's also a weight. Imagine being 20 years old and feeling like an entire country is holding its breath every time you toss the ball to serve. So what do you do when the spotlight outpaces the scoreboard? You go back to work, quietly, methodically, without the headlines. Through the following months, Eala kept grinding on tour, picking up wins here, absorbing losses there, the way every young player on the WTA circuit does. She reached a final at a smaller grass event the year before, a glimpse. just a glimpse of what her game could do on this particular surface. But glimpses don't make headlines, results do. And then, this year, something shifted. It started subtly, a solid spring, a few signature wins mixed in with the inevitable setbacks every player faces on the long, grinding tennis calendar. Nothing that screamed breakthrough, not yet. But if you were paying close attention, you could feel the foundation being built. The kind of foundation that doesn't show up in a single match, but in a season. Because here's what makes tennis so cruel and so beautiful at the same time. It doesn't care about potential. It doesn't care about fame or followers or how many people are rooting for you back home. The ranking points don't lie. The wins have to be earned, one match at a time, against players who are just as hungry as you are. Alex Eala understood that better than anyone. And as the calendar turned toward the grass court season, toward Wimbledon, she had one thing on her mind: redemption. Not revenge, not proving anyone wrong, just the simple, burning desire to walk back onto those lawns and finish what she started the year before. Nobody, not even her most loyal fans, could have predicted just how dramatically that desire was about to pay off. It happened in Berlin. The WTA 500 tournament in the German capital isn't usually where careers pivot. It's a mid-tier event on the calendar, a tune-up, a place where players sharpen their tools before the bigger tests ahead. But sometimes the smaller stages are exactly where the biggest stories begin. Alex Eala walked into Berlin in solid form, but nothing about her draw suggested she was about to make history. And then, match by match, something extraordinary started to unfold. She didn't just win, she beat players who were supposed to beat her. Among her victories were a pair of statement wins over top 10 opposition, the kind of results that make analysts sit up and take notice. Beating one ranked player in the top 10 is impressive. Beating two back-to-back in the same tournament? That's not luck. That's a player peaking at exactly the right moment. Can you imagine what that locker room felt like? The disbelief turning into belief match after match, as Eala kept advancing deeper into the draw. She made it all the way to the semifinals, her best result yet at this level, and in doing so, she did something her ranking sheet had never shown before. She climbed. 5 spots to be exact, from world number 35 to world number 30 in the span of a single week. Now, on paper, 5 spots might not sound like the stuff of legend, but context is everything in tennis. Because of how the calendar lined up, that particular ranking, the one released on a Monday in late June, was the exact number that Wimbledon would use to determine its seedings for the year's 3rd Grand Slam. In other words, Alex Eala didn't just climb the rankings, she climbed them at precisely the right moment to lock in something no Filipina had ever achieved in the history of the sport: a seed, at Wimbledon, at a Grand Slam. Think about what that actually means. Only the top 32 players in the world earn a seed at a major tournament. It's a designation that protects you from facing the very best players in the opening rounds, a signal recognized across the entire sport that you belong among the elite. For a player who was unseeded and eliminated in round 1 just 12 months earlier, vaulting into that exclusive group is nothing short of remarkable. And she didn't get there by accident or by a stroke of scheduling luck. She got there by beating 2 top 10 players in a single week, on the surface she loves most, in the tournament leading directly into the one she'd been dreaming about her entire career. When the news became official, when the name Alexandra Eala appeared on that seeding list as the number 29 seed, it wasn't just a number, it was history. The first time any player from the Philippines had ever been seeded at a Grand Slam, in any era, in any generation. For a moment, just sit with that. An entire nation with a tennis history that has never produced a seeded Grand Slam player suddenly had one, and she did it not through a wild card, not through a fluke run, but through cold, hard, undeniable results on the court. This is the part of the story where everything changes, because once that seed became official, Alex Eala wasn't just a promising young talent anymore, she was a genuine contender heading into the most famous tournament on the calendar, and the entire tennis world was about to take notice. If you want to understand what this moment meant, you don't look at the rankings page, you look at the reaction. Within hours of the seedings being confirmed, the story exploded, not just across Philippine sports media, but across mainstream news outlets that don't typically cover tennis at all. This wasn't a niche sports headline buried in the back pages. This was front-page news. Historic, first ever, trailblazer. The words kept repeating across headline after headline, each outlet racing to capture the magnitude of what had just happened. And it makes sense, doesn't it? The Philippines is a nation with deep, passionate sports culture, but tennis has never been at the center of it the way basketball or boxing has. For decades, the sport existed on the margins of the national conversation. Now, suddenly, there was a 21-year-old putting the country on the map at the most prestigious tennis tournament in the world. Social media did what social media does best. It amplified everything. Fans flooded timelines with messages of pride, with throwback photos of Eala as a teenager, with predictions about how far she could go. The Filipino diaspora, spread across the United States, the Middle East, Europe, and beyond, lit up group chats and comment sections with the same message over and over. She did it. She actually did it. This is where the story takes on its emotional core, because Eala's popularity was never just about her results. It was about representation. It was about a young woman from a country with limited tennis infrastructure, limited resources compared to the traditional tennis powerhouses, breaking through anyway. Every win she picked up wasn't just hers, it belonged to everyone who saw a piece of themselves in her journey. And then there was the build-up itself. The way she got there. In the weeks before the seedings were finalized, fans had already been buzzing. Eala had won a title in Birmingham, her second WTA 125 crown, adding more momentum to a grass season that was already turning heads. By the time the Berlin semi-final run happened, anticipation had built to a peach pitch. When the official confirmation came through, it didn't feel sudden. It felt like the release of weeks of held breath. Even her preparation became must-watch content. In the lead-up to Wimbledon, she was spotted training alongside Venus Williams, a 7-time Grand Slam champion and one of the most decorated players in tennis history, teaming up in doubles at a tune-up event in Germany. Picture that for a moment. A rising star, sharing a locker room, sharing a practice court, sharing match preparation with a legend who helped define an entire era of the sport. For fans, that image alone said everything about how far Eala had come and how seriously the tennis establishment was beginning to take her. But amid all the celebration, a quieter question started to take shape. Because a seed isn't just an honor, it's a responsibility. It comes with expectations. It comes with a draw sheet that the entire tennis world will scrutinize. And when that draw sheet was finally released, it didn't just confirm her status, it set up one of the most anticipated potential matchups of the entire tournament.
Every Grand Slam draw has a moment where the entire sport leans in. For Wimbledon this year, that moment belonged to Alex Eala's side of the bracket. Her opening match was set, a clash with Renata Zarazua, a familiar opponent from her past, a former doubles partner turned tournament rival. The two had history. Zarazua had beaten Eala in a tight, grinding 3-set battle in a previous meeting. It wasn't an easy draw by any stretch. As the 29th seed, Eala was guaranteed nothing, and Zarazua, ranked outside the seedings but more than capable of an upset, represented a genuine first test of whether the Berlin breakthrough was sustainable or simply a brilliant flash in the pan. But it was what came after the first round that truly set the tennis world on fire. Because seated between positions 25 and 32 meant one thing for certain. Eala was guaranteed to face a top 8 player by the third round, and depending on how the bracket unfolded, an earlier blockbuster was suddenly on the table. If both players won their openers, the second round could bring Alex Eala face-to-face with Serena Williams. Let that sink in for a moment. Serena Williams, 23.
Strip away the headlines, the social media frenzy, and the dream matchup scenarios for a moment and ask yourself a simple question. What does this seed actually represent? It represents proof. Proof that Alex Eala's rise was never about hype outpacing substance. It was about substance finally catching up to the hype that had surrounded her for years. Remember, this is a player who became famous in some ways before she became consistently dominant on tour. That gap between perception and performance can be a brutal place for a young athlete to exist in. Every shortfall gets magnified, every loss gets dissected by millions of people who expected more simply because the name recognition arrived faster than the results did. What the Berlin run and the historic seeding that followed did was close that gap. It told the tennis world definitively that this wasn't a star manufactured by popularity alone. This was a competitor who could beat 2 top 10 players in the same week on the exact surface where the sport's most prestigious tournament is about to be played. There's also something deeply symbolic about the redemption arc at play here. A year ago, Eala walked off a Wimbledon court having lost in 3 sets, but decisively, to a former champion in the first round. She returns this year not as an underdog hoping to make noise, but as a seeded player with a bye built into her draw, a player the rest of the field now has to account for and respect. That's the difference 12 months and one extraordinary grass season can make. And for her fans, the ones who have followed every match, who have stayed up at odd hours across different time zones just to watch her compete, this moment carries a different kind of weight. It's validation. It's the sense that the years of belief weren't misplaced. It's watching someone you've supported through ups and downs finally reach the stage where the entire tennis world has to take notice. Not because of where she's from or how many followers she has, but because of what she's actually doing on the court. There's a broader significance here too, one that extends beyond Eala herself. Philippine tennis has never had a moment quite like this. No Filipino player, man or woman, has ever been seeded at a Grand Slam before. That's not a small footnote, that's a foundational shift. Young players across the Philippines, the next generation watching this unfold, now have proof that this level of achievement isn't reserved for nations with decades of tennis infrastructure and tradition. It can happen here, too. It just did. Of course, none of this guarantees what happens next. A seed isn't a trophy, it's an opportunity, nothing more, nothing less. Whether Eala turns this into a deep Wimbledon run, whether she rises to the occasion against Zarazua and potentially against Serena Williams, whether this becomes the breakthrough moment of her career or simply one bright chapter among many, that's still being written. But here's what can't be taken away, regardless of how the tournament unfolds. She made history. The seed is real. The achievement is permanent, etched into record books that will outlast any single match result. And for a player who has spent her career carrying the weight of a nation's expectations, that kind of permanence might be the most important victory of all. So here's the question worth sitting with. Is this the beginning of a sustained run at the very top of women's tennis for Alex Eala? Or will this turn out to be the peak of a single extraordinary season? Only time, and the matches still to come, will tell. What do you think? Can Alex Eala turn this historic seed into a deep Wimbledon run? Or is the pressure of facing a legend like Serena Williams simply too much for a player making her first appearance among the seeds? Drop your prediction in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, hit subscribe and turn on notifications because this is only the beginning of Alex Eala's Wimbledon journey, and we'll be covering every twist as it happens.